Can we talk a little bit more about resilience? Because I imagine you've had to draw on resilience in abundant measures over the course of your life and career. And how do you teach that, and how do you get better at it and apply it in sort of everyday life? Because we're sort of living in a time where, I don't know whether it's just me, but it feels like, people aren't as resilient as perhaps they need to be or should be. How can we get better at it?
It is a huge, huge subject, resilience, and I'm going to attempt to.
You've got 5 minutes.
So resilience really is our ability to deal with hard situations or bounce back. It's how quickly you can bounce back from trauma or, failure. Now, you can build up resilience through life because of experience. You will become comfortable with certain situations because you've experienced them, which means you have understood something and you know how to manage it going forward. That's one thing, but that also depends on how you have been taught to deal with those situations. So there's a lot at play. But the one thing that I have realized over time, and I'm going to sound very boring now, is your pools of resilience, they are as easy to tap into as you allow them to be. So what I mean by that is, this is a very, very difficult way of explaining it, but bear with. Imagine if you could lead your life twice in parallel at the same time. Okay, so all the events that happen, good or bad, happen at the same time. One of those lives that you lead, you go out on the piss all the time, you're drinking a lot, you're having fun, you don't sleep much, you don't watch what you eat, you don't check in with yourself, you pay yourself very little attention. The other one, you balance all that. You have, a good diet. You don't drink too much. You're not out all the time, burning the candle at both ends. You get good sleep. You're checking in with yourself. You regularly give yourself time that you deserve. Now, they're going along. Every time a traumatic incident happens, 100% the one of you that has been looking after itself will bounce back quicker from traumatic incidents because they have set themselves up to do so. That is the first thing that you can do. And I know it sounds boring. And I still, I'm actually going through a stint of not drinking at the moment because I like doing it. And I will, don't get me wrong, Christmas is coming. I'm going to get amongst it. But I'm going through that phase because I know that it prepares me well for stuff that I'm not expecting. And I like that. I like being ready. And it puts you in a better frame of mind to deal with it. So resilience is a lot of different things, but those pools of resilience, you can make them easier to tap into.
So I get about the being prepared bit, and I get about, like you say, that makes complete sense about the person who has set themselves up for success is much more likely to deal with a problem and whatever it might be that happens more admirably than the other person. But what about failure? Because failure can be really important. Failure can be the thing that we learn more from than success. But in your situation, if you fail, presumably people might die or have died. So failure means something completely different to what it does perhaps to me in my everyday life or has done. So how do you balance and weigh that up? Because I think we've got a problem with failure in this country that we're not comfortable with people failing at stuff. And I think they probably need to occasionally.
I think what we've got a problem with is accountability. I think people they're not willing to be accountable because they're afraid of being seen as either a failure or being seen to have made the wrong decision. Whereas there is a lot of strength that comes with accountability. There's a vulnerability that comes with it, but also what comes with vulnerability is strength. And that's my opinion, but I genuinely believe it. Failure is probably the only way we as humans actually become better, because it's the most extreme. Everyone says, I hate that word failure. And I'm like, well, I love it, because the only time I've ever learned is when I've failed, really. I mean, the special forces do have a good way of dealing with success as well, because they treat it as a failure. That each time you do something and it goes well, they debrief it. They're always like, right, what have we done and how do we make it better? And that's what we should be doing each time we fail as well. Right, okay, what has happened? Don't dwell on it. Let's just reflect. How do we learn from it, and how do we move forward? And that's what I do now. When something goes wrong, I'm like, right, okay, that, you know, you deal with the hurt. There's a knotted feeling that you get, but then that knotted feeling should motivate you into looking at how you bounce back from it. And so I think there needs to be more accountability and less fear of failure, because failure is a good thing. It really is.
That's really interesting. It's like, instead of patting yourself on the back when something goes well and busy celebrating and cheering the wins, actually you treat them the same as a failure, because it's all about, you can always be better.
Yeah.
You can always learn more. And then that keeps a much more level, balanced approach, doesn't it, to everything? It's a bit like not believing the hype and also not believing the criticisms
Exactly.
in the same measure, isn't it?
The one thing that was always rammed down our necks in the Special Forces was humility. Don't believe your own bullshit, basically, because it is exactly that.
Perfect. Brilliant. Foxy, this has been fabbo. Thank you so much for chatting through all of those things in the last hour or so. And I've just about given you enough time to dive off and have another coffee.